Now we are having our next guest. She is a journalist, a storyteller, communication consultant, and much more. And her name is Rose Odengo.
Thank you, Wendy. So around the room, I actually see a lot of phone calls and pending coffees that I'll ensure will be realized after this. As Wani said, I'm Rose Odengo. I'm just recalling the Zoom conversation I had with Wani. I am a communication consultant, to summarize the multiple things that I do, and I'm the founder of Sigana. Sigana is a communication and strategy organization. But I want us to play a little game before I continue with my little ramble. I'm going to say a couple of words, and I want you to shout out the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay? Ready? Yeah. All right. Nairobi.
Traffic.
Heat. Traffic.
Love. Green city.
Sorry?
Green city.
Green city.
Love.
Love. Okay. Crazy. All right. Okay. Mount Kenya.
Cold.
Cold. Ice. Beautiful. Peak. Beautiful. Okay. All right. New York.
Lights.
Busy.
Lights. Busy. Skyscrapers. Crowded. Sorry? Style. Okay. Broadway. Unsafe. All right. Unsafe. Okay. Lagos.
Construction. Oga.
Traffic. Construction. Oga. Scary. Noisy. Chaos. Witchcraft. Good God. Okay. Maybe I should stop this game now. So ideally what you tend to find that just based on a name, you naturally are wired to think about it in a certain way. Whether it's busy, beautiful, chaotic, green, or witchcraft. So ideally what I do in my communications, I'm very big on, I train organizations on how to communicate. Now my big overall goal in my life is to completely reshape the narrative of Africa. But I'm a big believer that in order to reshape the narrative of Africa, you don't do it by just putting kind of makeup on a pig that's kind of rolled in mud. Ideally what you want to do is to get people to believe in what they really are, the beauty that they really are, and to be able to communicate that beauty to the rest of the world. So communication is all about building and growing perception. So how I do that with organizations is I teach them how to communicate. But in order to teach them how to communicate, they need to also figure out what problem they're solving. So communication and building perception is really about understanding why am I here. The same way we're all in this room with various skill sets, we're all answering a question, why am I here? And for organizations, answering why am I here means what problem am I solving and what value am I adding to my environment, to my country, to the world. So ideally I guide organizations with strategy and communications to build those perceptions. And it's part of my 3 stages. I believe that in order to completely reshape the narrative of Africa, it's done, at least for Sigana, my company, in 3 ways. One is teaching organizations how to communicate. Organizations and NGOs are the lifeline. They're the first frontier of how the world engages with our countries. The second thing I do is to propel the brilliant voices and innovators of the continent on a global stage. And the first step to do that is to brand people. We have a lot of brilliant innovators, we have a lot of executives, but in most cases have no idea how to sell themselves. So what we do at Sigana is we help them brand and package themselves and connect them to global networks to propel them to a global stage. Because the reality is we live in a world where even though we're in continents and even though we're connected by the internet like right now, we don't really interact. The understanding, you still have people around the world who think Africa is a monolith. But if people are to actually look around this room, this is literally a face of Africa. This is a genuine face of Africa. Different faces, different accents, different outfits, we're not a monolith. So when you have more brilliant innovators, the best of the continent, being propelled and able to tell the narrative on a global stage, that starts to change the narrative of Africa. So you no longer see us as people who need handouts, but people to grow partnerships to transform the world we exist in. Now the last stage is production. So my company, Sigana, we're very big on productions. We started off with a podcast, 2018, 2019, then like the story of every other person on the planet, COVID happened. That kind of threw things off. So Sigana is in the process of restarting a new podcast, and I kind of see some new people featured in that podcast here today. Ideally, in everything that I've done, and if I can rewind and go back to when I met Wani, the reason I'm laughing is, in 2015 when I met Wani, I was, how many years in? I was 4 years into a consultancy. I quit full-time employment. I was working in mainstream Kenyan media. I wanted to be a journalist. I had been frustrated, and I was told I cannot move from being a radio copywriter. I was working in advertising in the station. I could not become a TV journalist, so that upset me. I quit and I said I'm going to be a journalist anyway. And with that, I reported and wrote quite a number of news articles and reported for various American publications. I had a couple of articles in United Press International, wrote articles with the Global Press Journal, had articles as well in the Guardian newspaper in the UK, and a couple of East African publications as well. But then I started to realize that, okay, this is great, I want to transform the world, but my bottom line is just not being met. So I got back into copywriting, and then PR became a thing. So a mutual friend of ours, shout out to Reshma Khan, Reshma introduced me to Wani, and Moving Cultures was getting its feet on the ground in Kenya. They needed help with PR. I was relatively new to it, and to be honest, I found Wani painfully idealistic at the time. Unity and diversity, what does that even mean? Because I was just coming from a point of anger and frustration. And through working with Wani and just being reintroduced to what Nairobi looks like, the different faces, the different races, the different cultures, the food, the events, the initiatives, the partnerships, my eyes were completely opened to the power of that level of unity and the kind of the power of the diversity and how that diversity can be honed to actually bring unity. And through that, Wani also threw me into skill sets I knew at the back of my mind that I had the capacity for, but I was petrified by. So the same way everyone's here talking about, I didn't know I was going to talk, that is Wani 101. If you didn't know, now you know. Yes, Wani throws you into the deep end. One day I was depressed, went to Wani and I said I need a mentor, and then she unleashed her book and said, we have this event, this is what I need you to do, but that's not the question I asked you to do. I would like you to mentor me, but she just get the work done. That's literally how Wani works. There's no time for a pity party. There's a problem that needs to be fixed. I'm helping you fix it. You may not realize it right now, but you will. So I found myself doing a lot of emceeing work, and it kick-started my emceeing work across the city, thanks to Wani. One of many brilliant things Wani has been able to bring out to me. One hugest takeaway that I have learned through Wani and through Moving Cultures is that most of us all seem to be meeting Wani at the same point in our lives. What are we going to do with ourselves? That's literally the state we're mostly in. And just by a nice, simple brush or nudge or introduction, your life is transformed constantly. And that, for me, is the power of connection. Is to realize that you're human as I am, and at times you just need to get out of your own head and out of your own space to be able to be propelled into the space that you need to be. Who I am today, running a communications firm, confidently standing in front of you, not having butterflies in my stomach, is something that I innately had the capacity for. But because I was not in a space before I met Wani that could actually hone that, I was stuck. So being here today and hearing everyone's amazing stories just makes me realize how privileged I am to be part of this community. So thank you all. And if you do need any help in learning how, one, you want to build a brand as an executive, as an African innovator, If you would like to build your strategy and communications for your organization, your non-profit or your for-profit organization, give me a call. Rose Odengo on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you, Rose. And now we have some cultural acts taking place with us today, but before we move to the spoken poetry and also to